Everybody, BK with another episode of the Silver Sabbath podcast. Today I'm coming to you from my Connex container. Turns out that if I don't need Wi-Fi in order to record this, it doesn't matter where I do it, as long as I have good sound quality, and this place does provide that. Those of you that follow my social media notice I'm wearing the same exact thing that I did for my bourbon and bullshit video, my little reel on Sunday. So today's Sunday when I'm recording this podcast is going to drop on Monday. If you haven't seen it, go ahead and check it out. I'm going to try to not be repetitive and keep those bourbon and bullshit segments short and mostly being personal rants with this podcast, providing more value to all our listeners. Today we're going to discuss something that I'll be the first one to say. It's one of those do as I say, not as I do, since I've been struggling with it myself. And arguably that is why I wanted to do this podcast and share some of the tips that I've learned and I've been given with you. So with no further ado, let's get into the episode. Welcome back. So today, as I said, we're going to talk about something that I am struggling with. I've been struggling for the past few months with it, and in my efforts to reach out to a bunch of resources, I learned a lot, and some of it's been working, some of it not so great. Not because the resource wasn't good, it's just because I am failing to properly and consistently apply it. But I figure I'm going to talk to you about it, and that is about sleep hygiene, or the importance and how to stay asleep, right? Why should we do that? So it doesn't sound the most exciting thing, but what I've learned over the past few months is no matter what you do in life or where you are in life, whether you're young, you're older, if you're working for somebody else or you're working for yourself, whether you're in a relationship or alone, if your sleep is not up to par, everything else is going to fall apart. And I'm saying from experience, right? If you are not getting enough rest, your workouts are not as good, your recovery is not as good, obviously. Your relationships, because you're cranky all the time, are not as good. Your focus at work is not as good, so your productivity drops. And again, it doesn't matter if you work for yourself or work for another organization. The bottom line is that I cannot be 100% myself if I do not get enough rest. There are a variety of ailments that come with lack of sleep, anything from physical, and we already mentioned poor recovery, to emotional and psychological. So if we keep in mind that the brain actually processes information at night, so whatever you learn during the day, your brain actually convert into long-term memory at night. You don't have the opportunity to do so, so your learning capabilities drop, your cognitive functions drop, right? Your short-term and long-term memory suffer, and over time that becomes a big issue. I've been personally struggling with sleep for the past, I would say, since November, since I got back from my last deployment in Israel. Some of it has to do with, I'd call it, I don't want to call it post-traumatic stress, but certainly combat-related stress and some things that occurred to me personally, emotionally during that deployment and after. But also stress at work, the world is going to shit in a handbasket, and that's affecting my mindset, right? So there's a lot of things that contributed to me not being able to sleep well. And I started feeling the results. My wife certainly noticed that I am functioning less adequately at home, so I'm not as helpful. I am quicker to lose my temper to an extent, right? I'm not a violent individual unless I absolutely have to, but I certainly am crankier and with a shorter fuse, which affects our relationship, right? Same thing at work. I cannot give my 100% because I'm not sleeping enough, and that affects how I lead others and my personal productivity and being the leader of my organization and focusing on developing new programs, new efforts, coming up with new ideas. Obviously, it's hard for me to do if I don't get enough sleep. So I did a few things. The first thing I did is actually reach out to my physician. Those of you that haven't listened to my podcast with Dr. Nager, go ahead and listen. He was on our podcast twice. Once we discussed about medical emergencies during flight, but the very first one we did with him, which was episode 1 or 2, I'm not sure. I'm going to make sure to put a link in the notes, and if you're watching the video, I'm going to link it here. But in that episode, we talk a lot about testosterone and hormone replacement therapy and so forth. He's the one that's been managing my overall well-being for the past few years, and that's been doing a phenomenal job at it. I'm stronger, faster, I feel better than I've been, I would say, in my 30s, right? So Certainly he was the first resource I reached out to, and I said, Doc, I'm not sleeping. What can you do? And he suggested a few resources that I want to share with you. The first one was glycine, and obviously all the resources I provide to you, I believe it goes without saying, but make sure you consult with your own physician. Make sure that you understand each one of them. Make sure that it's appropriate for you. And if there's anything you shouldn't do, obviously don't do it. But glycine is an amino acid. It's a natural substance. I've been taking it in terms of hormonal support, but turns out that one of the effects of glycine is also aiding in falling asleep and staying asleep to some extent. So I've been taking glycine for the past few years. I take about 2,000 milligrams. Apparently, you can take between 10,000 and 15,000 milligrams, if I remember the numbers correctly. So the first thing that Dr. Nager said I should do is up my glycine intake. And I'll be honest, it worked. I take more glycine before I go to sleep. I did not go as high as you recommended. I probably, instead of 2,000, I take 4,000. But it certainly helps me in falling asleep. I do wake up. Coincidentally enough, there are 12:30. I wake up. If I'm able to fall back asleep 2:30 on the dot every night, I wake up. If I'm able to fall back asleep, 5 a.m. is my next wake up, and I'm up at that point. But it does help me fall asleep, and according to Dr. Nager, if I wake up in the middle of the night, I should take more glycine, right? So glycine is certainly something that helped me, and you guys should look into that as well. The other thing that he recommended is olive basil, another substance that I've been taking for a while. Olive basil being a natural herb that helps quiet down the brain. So considering that my reason for having sleep issues is my brain is racing, either it's work related or combat related or relationship related, whatever it is, right? My brain is racing and that keeps me up. Olive basil kind of quiets down the brain and allows me to fall asleep. So I take that about an hour before I go to bed, and that seems to also be very, very helpful. So on the supplement side, that is what I'm taking. There's a bunch of other supplements that you can take, such as zinc certainly helps with sleep. I believe magnesium as well. I'm not positive about that, but there's other supplements you can take. I try to stay away from stuff like melatonin or other substances that may be addictive in the long run, or people build a dependency on it. I didn't want that happening. So I'm staying away from those, but certainly something that you can look into if that's a concern. But what are some other issues? Or some other things that Dr. Nager suggested? So at the time, knowing that some of my inability to fall asleep has to do with my trauma and my emotional state, certainly recommended counseling. He suggested a few good resources. I did not go with these resources, but I did find a therapist, and for the first time ever, I've been consistently seeing a therapist, which also has been helping because I get to verbalize some of my issues and I get to get other tools to coping with those issues. So if you guys have not sought any therapy in the past, if there was ever a stigma with going to therapy being a bad thing, I believe that's been gone years ago, and I don't know why people still mention that ever as an issue. I believe everybody should be in therapy. I've always said that. Again, one of those says, do as I say, not as I do. I think everybody needs somebody to talk to. I think everybody needs a third party opinion, somebody that's not part of whatever the issue is. They're not part of your family, not part of your job. So someone that can look as an outsider and provide you good advice, certainly trained individual. So I did find somebody. If you want the contact information, I'm going to tag her here. Her name is Julie. She's been phenomenal, someone that I've been depending on for the past few weeks as well. Some additional resources, and these have nothing to do with necessarily Dr. Nager or with Julie, just tips that I picked up along the way. Some of them I mentioned in the past, some of them I haven't. I think you guys should try them all. In today's day and age, I mention this all the time, our brain runs on 110 miles per hour all the time, and we don't give it a break. We're on social media, we're at work, we're checking emails, we're on the phone, we're getting pulled in a million different directions. So one thing we need to do is certainly minimize and hopefully completely eliminate distractions. So put your phone away. I know we're all addicted to it. That's a problem. That dopamine dump that we get when we get a like on our post or somebody follows us or whatnot, that's real. I mean, it's the same effects you get from taking drugs. So I know it's not easy, but before you go to sleep, put that away. Put that away a couple of hours before you go to bed. There's nothing that can wait till the next morning. If you want to put it on sleep mode and put override for a few individuals that you think if there is an emergency should be able to get a hold of you, you can do that. But otherwise, certainly nothing that urgent that can wait till the next morning. So again, certain professions aside, but for the most of us, that holds true. So take your phone. I certainly started doing it at dinner. I put my phone away. I want to be able to focus on my wife and my family and have family time with them. But I'm trying to extend it past dinner time all the way to sleep time. I'll be honest and I'll admit, I do use my phone before I go to bed in terms of reading. I read on my phone. I should change that because not only is the distraction of the phone and getting texts, social media, emails, and calls, it's also the blue light that the phone emits, or any screen for that matter, is not helpful, and it messes with your circadian rhythm. So it confuses your brain and doesn't let you go to sleep. So ideally, read a paper book, good old-fashioned books. Stay off the phone if you can. If you are going to be on a screen, they make a lot of glasses that are specifically designed to minimize or eliminate that blue light emission, and hopefully helps with not tricking your body or your brain to think that it's daytime. So certainly minimizing those distractions. Another thing that you can do is make sure that your bedroom or wherever it is that you go to sleep is dedicated just for that. Again, we don't want to confuse your brain. If you have a TV in your room, if you use your room for other elements or other actions, then certainly make sure that you remove those. Your bedroom should be for sleeping only. Maybe some sexy time with your wife or significant other, but that's about it. So unless you're doing one of those actions, anything else should be out. So when you go to your bedroom and when you get in bed, your body and your brain knows, okay, this is what I'm here for, and it's more likely that you'll be able to fall asleep easier and faster. Make sure that your room is dark. Again, goes back to that circadian rhythm and the all light hours and dark hours. And if I'm confusing my brain between artificial lights and outside lights and so forth, that's gonna certainly interfere with me being able to fall asleep and stay asleep. So make sure it's dark. Have those blackout curtains on, use them. A white noise or a brown noise certainly help. Not 100% sure on the difference. Brown noise, my understanding is it's what we hear when we're in utero. So the sound of like swooshing water around when a fetus is being developed in its mommy's belly. So having those sounds certainly calming effect and blocks out a lot of other sounds that may be a distraction. So using those certainly helps as well. Keeping a certain temperature, a room that is too warm will interfere with sleep. Same with too cold. So generally speaking, between 67 and 69 degrees seems to be ideal for sleeping. Find what works for you. It does vary some between individuals, but find the temperature that works for you best and try to keep your room at that temperature when you go to bed. What else? If you do wake up, a few things that you can do. First of all, whatever it is that woke you up, that was a distraction that got you to wake up, you want to get rid of that as soon as possible, because otherwise you won't be able to fall back asleep. Your brain is going to be racing. And I mentioned it in a prior podcast, the reality is there's nothing you can do about whatever is bothering you in the middle of the night. If it's financial issues, if it's personal issues, relationship issues, whatever it is, at 2 a.m, you're not going to be solving it or doing anything about it anyways. So I want to get rid of it so I can go back to sleep. So A is recognizing that I can't do anything about it at that point in time, so there's no point in stressing over it. The second thing is you want to write it down, because oftentimes what happens is we think about it, we want to make sure we remember to do something about it, because otherwise we'll forget again, and that just increases the stress level, right? So me being able to write it down certainly helps in staying or removing it from my brain in a sense temporarily, putting it somewhere else that I can address later on, and that allows my brain to shut that element out. So have a little notepad and a pen next to your bed. If you're going to use a light, make sure it's a very dim light so it doesn't wake you up. A red light seems to work really well. So if you have like a red night light, that seems to not disrupt circadian rhythms and still allow you to see enough so you can write something down. Certainly do not get on your phone to write it down, because again, that will defeat the purpose and just trick your body to think, or your brain to think, that it's daytime and it's time to wake up. So stay off your phone when you write things down. So that's another thing. There are certain types of meditations and breathing exercises you can do. Certainly give that a chance if you've never meditated or did breathing exercises. I'm far from being the expert on it. I do just regular box breathing. So I inhale for 4, I hold for 4, and I exhale for 8. You're supposed to exhale for 4 and hold for 4 again. So 4, 4, 4, 4 makes a square, hence the term. But I just inhale for 4, hold for 4, exhale for 8, and I do that. And typically, if I, as my brain races and I keep bringing it back to my breathing pattern, that seems to calm me down and eventually allow me to fall back asleep. If all else fails, this is a little trick that I got from my buddy Mike. Just get out of bed. Staying in bed, and again, remember, your bed should be a place that you use for sleeping only. So if I'm awake in bed and I'm stressing in bed, then my body gets conditioned to that's what it does in bed. So you want to get out of bed. If you see that this is taking more than a few minutes and I can't put it away, go out, go to your living room, keep the dimmest light that you can, read a book, make it a boring book, again, to distract your brain and think about something else, something that doesn't require too much thinking, some fiction or whatever. And then hopefully as you get sleepy again, you can move back to your bedroom and go back to sleep. And when all else fails, listen, get up, do your work, and count on naps. Naps go a long way. People minimize naps. It doesn't have to be a long nap. But research I heard recently was that 5 to 10 minutes of a cat nap certainly gives you the boost in cognitive abilities and physical abilities for the next few hours. I took full advantage of it in the military, unbeknown to me. Every time I would have the opportunity, I would fall asleep, and that allowed me to carry on for the next few hours. I'm notorious for falling asleep if I get on an airplane or a helicopter or even a car if I'm not driving within seconds, and that's a train trick. So maybe I should take my own advice and go and sleep in a car instead of my bedroom. I don't know, maybe that works better. But the reality is that between the motions and the noise, again, think about being in an helicopter, the motion of it, the rotor sounds, right? So you get a white noise, you get the calming, soothing motion. It's certainly easier to fall asleep, but also in the military, that was just a result of fatigue. During the day, if you have your own office and you can turn off your lights for a few seconds, just shut your eyes for a few minutes. I sometimes, because I travel a lot, I can get in my car and close my eyes for a few minutes. But I'm not saying naps is the ideal solution for lack of sleep. It certainly isn't, but it's better than nothing in a sense, because if you don't take those naps, you're just going to crash at some point. And it happened to me a few times recently where my body was so fatigued that I just passed out. And did I get the sleep that night? I did. Was it good sleep? Probably wasn't. If it's a result of just ultimate fatigue, it is not the kind of sleep that you necessarily want on a consistent basis, right? You want that rehabilitative, that good sleep where you go into REM, where your brain has the opportunity to do what it needs to do, your body and your muscles get the opportunity to recover. That's what you need in order to sustain and longevity and so forth. So you don't want to get to the point of fatigue, but if you do get it, let your body dictate what you need to do. And if you need to take a nap, take a nap. It's better than nothing. So again, just a few quick little tips, but I certainly, knowing it affected me over the past few months and talking to other people and hearing their stories, and then listening to experts talking about how sleep is so important. Talking to my wife the other day, we're driving, and she mentioned listening to a podcast by a physician that when asked, between nutrition and workouts and meditation and recovery and sleep, what is the most important? And he said, obviously sleep. If you don't sleep, none of the other ones would matter. So regardless of what you do in life, sleep is so important, and it's a step that we tend to neglect so much, especially as entrepreneurs and go-getter alpha warriors. The old mantra of I'll sleep when I die. I know I fell a victim to that. I work all day. I work till late at night. You guys don't see the behind the scene, but if you ask my wife, I'll still be on my computer at 10 at night, writing plans, taking notes, writing my morning briefs, and whatever I need to do, I do till late at night. And then I wake up at 5 in the morning. So I start my day. I get most of my work done between 5 and 7 a.m. And that is not good. So I made a commitment to myself is to sleep a little bit later. I'm gonna start by setting my alarm for 5:30 instead of 5. That is if I can stay asleep that late. Uh, but giving my body a little bit more of the opportunity at least to get that rest it needs. And I feel, I know research supports it, that over time, that would actually make me better, more productive, certainly healthier on all aspects of life. So hopefully this was beneficial for you. Those of you that are struggling with this, those of you that have the mentality of sleep is overrated, think again. Someone in his late 40s and someone that runs multiple businesses, and I am super active on the tactical side, on the physical side, and so forth. I'll tell you that sleep is paramount. Invest in that. If everything else, between everything else, sleep is the one priority you need to give to yourself right now. So hopefully you found this helpful, and if there's any other resources I can provide or you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Certainly use all our social medias between Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. Direct message me, let me know, and if I don't have the answer, I'll make sure to get one for you. Until next time, stay savage.